Princess Peach Showtime is probably one of the most disappointing games I've ever played, and I would give it, at best, 2 stars out of 5. I don't approach this as one of those women hating, they made video games woke by making Peach the protagonist type, or a person with no self awareness who can't comprehend a video game made for kids and not for them. I think the game is bad regardless of its audience, and I, as a longtime Princess Peach nader, would have overlooked a lot of shortcomings just by virtue of finally having another game devoted to her. So what exactly went wrong? In this game, you control beloved Nintendo monarch Princess Peach as she traverses to the Sparkle Theater and attempts to save the patrons, who are little bulbous-nosed creatures named Thweets, from the evil Madame Grape and her grape minions, who have taken over the theater for mostly unexplained yet presumably nefarious purposes. There was never quite an excitement in my heart watching a Nintendo Direct than watching the Nintendo Direct live on the 14th of September 2023 and seeing the trailer for Princess Peach Showtime. Super Princess Peach, while it had severe issues, is a game rife with nostalgia for me. I literally just kept replaying and replaying on my Nintendo DS because being able to control Princess Peach, whom I'd always idealized as one of the outwardly feminine representative figures in video games, as she finally had her own adventure, was always just so heartening to me. And as I grew up and realized that finally giving Peach her own video game and making it about a lack of emotional regularity is perversely misogynistic, I hope that one day we would double back and finally get a video game starring Peach that exemplifies her femininity as power in a more comprehensive and tasteful way. Enter Princess Peach Showtime, a game that seems destined for me to love. How inspired of an idea is it to make Princess Peach the star of her own game and make it some type of theatrical, play-based narrative with Peach becoming an actress and some type of campy antagonist boss design? One of the most optimistic things I can say about this game, and there are not many, is that the commitment to the theme is incredibly well done. I don't think anyone who had ever been a fan of Princess Peach watched the first Showtime Direct and was not immediately transfixed. Everything from the spotlight constantly following Peach to the environments you traverse being assembled to look like sets, and fun gimmicks like the stages turning 180 degrees around Peach while the camera stays fixed to make it look like a set change in a play, drive home how thoroughly the developers thought about making a game that feels cinematic and play-like. Yet even with all of this, a game with complete theme coherence, a strong concept, and a definite appeal to fans of Princess Peach, I still came away from the game bitter and frustrated. Like, this game is not very graphically pretty. This game sucks. This game is so bad. Why? How can a game that seems tailor-made for me to enjoy be such a negative experience? Nobody was expecting an open-world Mario Odyssey experience with Peach as the lead, and to some extent I knew going in that the game would be low-stakes and casual-oriented. I would have never expected Bloodborne or Dark Souls level hand-to-hand combat with precise movement, or Banjo-Kazooie platforming. And that's not anything I'm mad at. Accessibility is important, and there's no reason kids of today should have to suffer with needlessly complicated or difficult games like I did back in 2007 trying to figure out how to beat Rugrats Royal Ransom when I had no motor skills. I was streaming my playthrough of this game, shameless plug twitch.tv/shoefleece if you want to see me rant nonsensically in a live format instead of a pre-recorded one, and while I was playing, one of my good Shoefleece naders, Tiger Lily, compared Princess Peach Showtime to a Kirby game in its format. The comparison landed on me funny after a whole play session of hating on Showtime, but as I thought more about it, I realized it might be an apt comparison in some ways. The joy of a Kirby game in many ways is environmental, getting immersed in the levels you play with a sense of whimsy and openness to the zany and fun enemy design is freeing in a way that you can't replicate with less casual games. There's no comparison between a Kirby game and a Persona game, for instance, other than a protagonist who I want removed from Super Smash Bros. In the next patch. Please get them out of here. Yet to me, Princess Peach Showtime fails to replicate the type of environmental immersion that makes Kirby games so enjoyable. Why? For one, the level design is insanely linear. There are no secret rooms or pipes or anything even comparable. Occasionally there are one-screen hidden areas with coins or a collectible in them that you move through for one singular minute and then go back to the main screen. For all intents and purposes, your interaction with the environment in Showtime is moving left and right, pressing the B button, and reading singular lines of text that pop up on screen. And that's an issue for me. When the aesthetic of the level is based around the costume that Peach puts on in said level, there's so much anticipation to see what the difference is between the tropical underwater mermaid stages and the film noir detective caper stages. But ultimately, I came away feeling like there's no difference. You don't really interact with the environment in any meaningful way, and it really just feels like the only difference from level to level is aesthetic. You become an ice skater for a stage and navigate a frosty village, but what does that mean if all the characters are the same in mildly different outfits, there are no real ice enemies, and the gameplay difference from the Wild West to the ice rink is pressing B on top of a snowflake versus pressing it on top of a horse? I was really irked by the end of the game because while I would have loved what I assume Showtime was going for as a Princess Peach game that gives you a sampler plate of a ton of different genres, like a beat 'em up Dynasty Warriors level and then a Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney level, it feels like it imposes arbitrary limitations on itself that prevent it from really reaching any of those heights. What we do get is just so far away from that intention, they might as well have intended to make a Nutella crepe and ended up at the same spot. At some point, I started to resent the fact that there were more levels left in the game, because the level design is so repetitive, and after playing one stage of a costume, you have no real stakes in the next stage of the costume, or the one after that, because it'll be mostly the same. They don't introduce any new features of button mapping, it's all just moving left and right, and pressing the B button for the 6 to 7 hours you play through the game. Don't get me wrong, I do not mind the idea of a simple game, and I don't mind the idea of a game for kids. My issue is not that the game does not ask the player to learn a bunch of different control schemes and get 30 game overs in a playthrough. My issue is that in avoiding these things, it almost became the absence of a video game. You don't really affect or interact with the environment, you don't really notice a difference in gameplay styles from level to level, and you don't really care about what happens in any singular level because they're all disconnected from each other. I will admit that the detective levels offered a brief reprieve occasionally, but I was almost equally frustrated with how little they asked you to think about anything in what should be a puzzle stage. I mean, 99% of the quote-unquote puzzles were talking to someone who would tell you exactly what to do to progress. Everything is simplified to extreme degrees in a way that seems to not trust the player to do anything other than mindlessly scroll. Here's the thing about a game for kids. You should trust them as players even if you aren't putting stock in them to be able to clear Undertale pacifist mode. If worst comes to worst, kids have decades of history filibustering their way through a game by mashing buttons and doing things over and over again until they make it through. Entire generations did that before the internet had accessible walkthroughs. But the assumption that a game for kids has to be nothing and provide them no type of immersive experience is a depraved and backwards idea for a game developer. What's the point of a game for kids if you functionally do not care about providing kids a game to play? And don't get me wrong, running left and right and pressing the B button could be enough for a casual audience if there was a compelling narrative. Like, I love playing dating sims and visual novels, so a lack of gameplay, if it's purposeful, doesn't bother me. But Princess Peach Showtime doesn't have that either. Story spoilers ahead for those who care, but I highly suggest not caring at all. Princess Peach Showtime starts with a toad showing Peach a flyer for the Sparkle Theater, a beautiful and opulent playhouse. She packs her suitcase and heads over to see a play, but almost as soon as she arrives, oh no! The playhouse is corrupted by Madame Grape, an admittedly well-designed antagonist who looks exactly how the villain in a Princess Peach-headed game should look. The play has become overrun by evil grape creatures, and Peach must help save the stars of the theater, who are called Sparkles for some reason, who are locked in the basement, by becoming a patron performer herself. Through taking on various roles in different stages, she slowly restores the Sparkle Theater from its grape-flavored corruption, moving up through the floors of the theater and working to free all of the Sparklers from their imprisonment. Once she finally ascends to the peak of the playhouse and successfully frees all of the Sparklers, she tries to open the door to face off with Madame Grape, but the door is unaffected by the sparkle gems she collected throughout the stages. Instead, all the freed Sparklers must come together and give her their energy so that she can ascend to her highest form, a suspiciously teal-colored, galactic-dressed floating Peach, and break the seal to find Madame Grape. MG finally has dialogue and reveals that her motivation is to make the ultimate tragedy, with Peach as her dazzling foil failing in the end in spectacularly dramatic fashion. Peach goes vaguely Super Saiyan and defeats the Grape Lady, but she comes back to life like any Shakespearean villain would and destroys the entire theater. However, the power of friendship strikes again as all the Sparklers, the Thweets, and Peach's ribbon companion Stella, who I never mentioned because she's irrelevant, all give Peach their energy and she ascends even further and finally defeats MG and saves the theater. Peach and the Sparklers give their final bow as the curtain draws closed. When writing this out for the video, it felt like somewhat of a compelling story, right? Like traditional bad guy versus good guy, simplified for a casual audience, but still enough to invest you in the gameplay. But that's not actually how it's told to us as the player of the game. Literally, there are probably 4 cutscenes in the entire game, including the opening one where Peach shows up with a single suitcase for presumably multiple nights stay at the Sparkle Theater. I know she smells funky after night 3. Literally, my script of the plot is 2 paragraphs, and the second paragraph is the last 10 minutes of the game. The final cutscene tells you everything about what the game is trying to say, and what you should have cared about the entire time you were playing. There was no affirming of the themes throughout standard levels, there was no recurrence of Madame Grape, or stakes to her villainy. It was just clearing a bunch of nameless, faceless enemies, getting to the end, and then getting a lore dump in the final moment. On illustrious daytime television icon Wendy Williams' self-titled show, she would frequently ask for audience participation to gauge interest in the topics she discussed with a simple phrase: clap if you care.
All right, let's move on. Perfect.
Throughout Princess Peach Showtime's final cutscene, I found myself thinking that nobody would be clapping. Here's the thing with a narrative that's resolved with the power of friendship. It's tacky, but sometimes it works. Especially for a game that's highly dramatized, geared to a younger audience, and functionally dependent on an understanding of plays, there really was no other option on how to resolve this game. And one could even argue that Princess Peach's greatest strength recurring throughout the franchise is her empathy and love for the world. Like, she's represented with hearts not just because she's feminine and pink affiliated, but because she has a sense of optimism and poise as a monarch beloved by her subjects that makes her a clear foil to the various hardened antagonists who victimize her throughout the Mario franchise. Yet what is of material importance when crafting a plotline that ties all those strands together is creating a cast of characters we know on any level. We have to have stakes in the relationships as a player to believe that there is some tangible, weaponizable power to these bonds. And there is no characterization. The Sparklers show up in one level each and have no distinguishable personalities other than the costumes they wear. They're characterized only by their victimization to Madame Grape, and once Princess Peach saves them, they return to random floors on the theater, saying one line of dialogue. How can we ever believe that Princess Peach ascends to her highest form because she's become so beloved and cherished by these nobodies, Kias, if you will, throughout the game, that everyone gives her their energy to defeat Madame Grape and it works? I did not have any stakes in saving the theater. I did not have any stakes in Madame Grape's defeat. I finished the game out of obligation of having started the game. These issues compound on each other. When there's no real stakes to the gameplay, there have to be stakes to the story. And when neither exist, the game becomes exclusively artifice. It is an aesthetic of a video game and not a real video game. And yet, as everything video game related comes in threes, I have another chapter critiquing the aesthetic as well. I was on Girls Go Games playing dress-up simulators from the time I was able to worry my parents about my reproductive future. A game about dressing up Princess Peach could literally have been enough for me. Imagine the first strike being the gameplay, the second strike being the story, and the pitcher is still up to bat and has a chance to hit a home run with aesthetic. For a lot of people, this is where the game redeems itself. After all, I already acknowledged how comprehensively they navigated the theatrical theming, so what could I possibly nitpick here? My issue is with Princess Peach's actual fashion. Boss design, enemy design, it's all pretty well done, but Princess Peach herself very rarely serves throughout the entire game. Imagine! A game about dressing up Princess Peach and all the outfits are bad. Let me just go one by one and say my issues with each of the designs. Mind you, at this point, I just figure I should get everything out. This is definitely a me issue, and I recognize this is my personal taste, but while I'm ranting, I might as well voice everything. Original Peach. They really missed the mark on her hair in this game to me. It's bright yellow and untoned in every game, but the juxtaposition of her urine yellow blonde with the rest of her color palette is especially jarring here. I've talked about her unblended extensions dating back to Super Princess Peach. Ooh, look at her unblended, oh my god, you can see Princess Peach's unblended extensions from the back. But for some reason, I just think she looks a mess in ways she usually doesn't in her default costume this time around. Cowgirl Peach. Fundamentally, I get it. It's the leather with the chaps and the denim and the cowgirl hat and the red bandana around the neck. Classic. But it isn't stylized or elevated in any type of way. It's literally just a party suit costume Peach put on out of the bag. And what a missed opportunity to not do pigtails here. We get a ponytail in like 99% of the costumes. Dashing Thief Peach. What even is this? Supposedly she's an international thief in this costume, but it resembles more Tuxedo Mask from Sailor Moon. I'm probably just missing the reference, but if we're gonna have entire levels based around Peach having a whip she uses as a grappling hook, make her sleek, reference Catwoman. Detective Peach. I guess I'm fine with this one from the perspective of her having a pixie cut for some reason, which is so interesting. Like, your non-binarity is valid, Peach. But I really started to get disillusioned with how obvious all of the costumes were. Like, again, this is a detective costume straight out of a Party City bag, and I just feel like Princess Peach Showtime should have taken this opportunity to affirm Peach as a style icon, no? You can make her a detective without putting her in a beige trench coat and matching cap. Figure Skater Peach. For some reason, this one really irritated me. A low bun, a glittery blue dress, and some random wing accessories. Mind you, figure skating is one of the most chic and glamorous sports, and figure skating fashion has so much to tap into, and we end up with the bottom of the barrel. Again. Kung Fu Peach. In my opinion, if everything else was the bottom of the barrel, this one's the actual barrel. What a disaster from every perspective. Kung Fu Princess Peach is so hard to get wrong, and they even did so much right. Literally a bubble braid with her usual brooch sticking out as a hair accessory, and the traditional Kung Fu uniform is almost the best possible case scenario. But I hate the color combination. Why the hell does she have eyeshadow in a costume for the first time in the game, and why is it orange? We have purple and green in the clothes, and then a vibrant orange eyeshadow with orange earrings. Like, I'm so annoyed. Mermaid Peach. This is cute enough for what it is, and everyone was super excited for this one, so I guess I can't be overly critical, but I think it would have benefited from a headpiece or a tiara of some kind, and maybe some definition or texture on the tail. I don't know. There's something missing to me. Mighty Peach. This is another one where I feel like the concept is so much cooler than the actual execution. I just feel like Galactic Space Warrior Peach is such a cool idea, and they didn't really make her look like a main character. They made her look like an NPC with one line of text from a Star Trek game. I think it could have been cool if they made this like a Samus Aran reference, where she had geometric space design, maybe a red helmet with a green visor, or huge space boots. I don't know. Something. And why, again, the ponytail? Like, it's just, so often it's a ponytail. Give her a different hairstyle. Ninja Peach. It is what it is on this one, right? Like I said, they never had any intention to make her a style icon, and the costumes are mostly Party City, and this one is no exception. I think the lack of hairstyle diversity is a huge problem for me, because as much as Peach was always going to have this jarring yellow hair in every costume, I just don't get why everything had to be a ponytail. We could have had a little matching black ninja cap with a bun sticking out of the top or something, and had her scarf covering her mouth like a ninja mask, but they weren't at all concerned with making the outfits visually interesting beyond the bare minimum. Patisserie Peach. I actually like this one a pretty good amount. It's definitely my favorite of the costumes. The gingham skirt, the apron, the chef hat, the milkmaid braids, like, it's all just cohesive and works together with a level of character design forethought I think is absent in all of the other designs. Sword Fighter Peach. Like, I guess I appreciate this one for how we finally get close to camp in a video game about the theater, and French nobility, fencing, Napoleon musketeer is a pretty hilarious outfit to put Princess Peach in, but I still feel like something's off. I would have maybe reworked this to give her a huge white blouse with big sleeves so she could have some type of interesting animation movements while fencing, like her sleeves billowing out or something. I don't have a section in the video dedicated to this, but I think there could have just been more effort put into the animation as well. Everything is sort of cut and paste. And then finally, her ascended form at the peak of the game, Radiant Peach. I referenced this earlier, but how hilarious is it that Princess Peach's final form is just Rosalina? I know the Rosalina fans are jumping and cheering about how Princess Peach Showtime basically confirms Rosalina is a superior being. Like, maybe if Princess Peach wishes really hard and channels the energy of her friends, she can one day also have a teal dress. I recognize that this section makes me look like the biggest complainer and these grievances do not matter at all, and I can see your response to this being, you're mad the outfits are basic or costumey in a children's game about the theater. To which I say, it's not the hugest deal in the world to anyone with emotional regularity, which I do not have. And when you don't push the boundary in gameplay, and you don't push the boundary in storytelling, you open yourself up to this level of nitpicking and hypercriticism. Princess Peach Showtime is the age-old tale of when you dislike something, everything they do becomes a problem to you. Like, look at that Peach eating crackers like she owns the place. And just to conclude this section talking about what could have been aesthetically in Princess Peach Showtime, why do they let you unlock patterns for Princess Peach's overworld dress and then not let you choose the colorways? Even if they had a finite number of color combinations you could unlock, obviously everyone is going to expect that when you get a pattern, you can play with different color combinations. Even Fall Guys managed to make a functional pattern color system on release. Why would you not think your audience wants to have fun and dress Princess Peach up in creative ways? I was literally more annoyed than anything else in the entire game that I unlocked a cow print dress pattern and then I couldn't make it black and white. Why are we putting Peach in a cow print pink dress that you can't change the colors of? What is happening? Is this hell? In hell, I feel like there's relief in utter helplessness. Here, we flounder under the weight of our inability to change Peach's dress colors. Truly, this is worse. Disclaimer. I am not a game designer. I have no game design experience. I'm just a chronic complainer. I don't have any education or experience in making a video game, and all of this is just coming from my disappointment with the game and my desire to have played a better one. With that said, here's how I would have fixed Princess Peach Showtime. So starting off with the level design, my issues are with the linearity, disconnectedness, and singularity of each stage, and repetitive gameplay. My perspective is that in trying to make a game that gives you a little bit of everything, we end up with basically nothing. Fixing this is more of a labor-intensive task than can be summed up in some guy's first attempt at a video essay, but I think the game would have worked much better if we had the same stage inspirations, i.e. tropical, bank heisty, outer space, but they weren't necessarily predicated on a singular costume. Instead, we could have really taken influence from the Kirby experience and had levels where different costumes had to be used at different points in the stage to solve environmental puzzles and engage the player with understanding multiple different playstyles. Imagine this. You're on what used to be an ice dancing level, and Mighty Peach is not just another beat-em-up costume, but instead reorients combat to be a turn-based JRPG format, akin to Super Mario RPG. And you have to use this costume to engage a large snowman with enemy blocking the path in a way that Kung Fu Peach and her Dynasty Warriors beat-em-up gameplay doesn't have the capacity to beat. Or you could be on what used to be a detective stage solving a case of theft in a flower shop, and by using the dating sim style Mermaid Peach costume, you find out with correct dialogue tree inputs that the main suspect claims they couldn't have been responsible due to their allergy to lavender. And by turning into Patisserie Peach, you're able to expose that suspect after a Cooking Mama minigame, where you successfully make a lavender cookie recipe, the main suspect eats it, isn't affected, and outs themselves for lying about their allergy. Ice Skating Peach could be able to clear high jumps and turn the level into a rhythm-based platformer where she evades swaths of enemies with correct button inputs, while Dashing Thief Peach could be a Mirror's Edge or Batman Arkham-esque platformer that turns the stage 3D and has you jumping from building to building. Is what I'm describing actually sensible or possible for a video game? I have no idea. After all, what's the grounding gameplay here? How do you start a level and then finish it when you're able to change the genre so radically in a single stage? My harebrained vision of this is that it would be normal Princess Peach running through and basing progression on interaction with obstacles, where you can progress in a number of ways with a number of costume options, encouraging replayability. I imagine the player going, what power-up can I use other than Dashing Thief Peach to stop a bank heist? If I change to Patisserie Peach, I can block the exit by playing Cookie Mama to bake bread, and then jamming the door shut with it or something. Or if I change to Ninja Peach, I can make it a stealth section, where I can disarm enemies one by one in Solid Snake fashion. Make the costumes unlockable as you progress through the game, and then make it so that you can go back to older levels with the new costumes, and find collectibles in new areas, or affect the characters in different ways. I don't think this makes the game inaccessible for a casual or younger audience. In fact, I think casual audiences would be excited to find a favorite costume and a related gameplay style, and clear levels with that costume's power-up. And what's more common in theater than an outfit quick change? We could have stagehands come in and a cute animation and help Detective Peach become Mermaid Peach. I'm not sure. I'm going to be a lot better at fixing the narrative than fixing the level design because, again, I have no game design experience, but I stand in the fact that the current state of Showtime does not trust the player to actually be a player and affect the course of the game in any innovative or interesting ways. Another vaguely important change I would make, let the character actually talk to the tweets with the A button rather than having the text play as you walk up and then auto-scroll. Although I feel like that would help in engaging the player with the world, That's more of a quality of life change to me, because going back to get collectibles you miss is grueling in the current state of the game. The levels are intensely linear with no way to speed them up, no chapter select, and no way to skip through what you've already seen. Add all of those features. And now on to fixing the narrative. As I mentioned, there are a lot of bones to the story that I don't think are archaeologically unviable if we started doing excavation and reconstructing the dinosaur that is Showtime's plot. I don't mind the power of friendship resolution if it's earned, and I think it emphasizes some of Peach's most resonant traits. The issue is that the payoff is not worked for throughout the course of the game, and the way the story plays out is almost exclusively tell, not show. This is coupled with the fact that Princess Peach really has no participation as a protagonist throughout the game. She doesn't find out anything new, she doesn't meet any particularly relevant characters, and her inability to progress is mostly arbitrary with no narrative justification. Like, we can pretty much assume that Princess Peach at the beginning of the game and Princess Peach at the end of the game are the exact same. She hasn't acted as any agent of any resonant lesson, she just made it to the top floor of the theater by clearing all the levels, which, again, are singular and unattached from any greater plotline. Here's how I would rewrite Princess Peach Showtime. Princess Peach receives a flyer for the Sparkle Theater, once famed for its glorious performances, which says that they're doing a play about her.
Wait, is this a play about us?
Excited by the prospect, Princess Peach embarks to see the play about her life in the Mushroom Kingdom, but is shocked when at the apex of the play, Madame Grape floods the theater with dark magic and sends everything into disarray, much like what happens at the beginning of the real game. Stella, in this version of the story, is a stagehand who prefers to work behind the scenes of the plays, and reveals that the theater is on the brink of being shut down, making the task of decorruption pivotally important. Peach attempts to break the curse now rotting the theater, and instead of the Sparklers being locked unceremoniously in the basement, they're imprisoned throughout the levels instead. By playing through and saving them, they become companion characters who work alongside Peach and Stella to solve puzzles, interact with the environments, and give hints to the player if they're stuck, each with individual personalities and character traits. However, half of the Sparklers do not become companions, and instead are the bosses at the ends of the stages. We find out through playing that the theater is rife with competition, and there's a sense of jealousy and resentment among the Sparklers, who are each in pursuit of singular superstardom. For instance, the cool and collected Ninja Sparkler is rescued by Peach, and then accompanies her throughout the level, and eventually helps her defeat the Kung Fu Sparkler, who is intensely hot-headed, and must be defeated by Wild West costume-powered Peach in a 2D Street Fighter-esque fighting game. Princess Peach successfully rescues all the ally Sparklers and defeats all the boss Sparklers, and navigates to the top floor to face off with Madame Grape, who Princess Peach is unable to damage in the fight. When confronted by Stella about how Madame Grape has flooded the playhouse with chaos and discord, Madame Grape replies that she merely took advantage of the existing turmoil, as the corruption of the theater had existed long before the events of the game. Each Sparkler runs in one by one to try to use their ability to stop Madame Grape, but she dispenses each of them easily. Realizing that the theater's curse runs deeper than Grape's enchantment, Stella helps Peach escape thanks to her stagehand knowledge to the Hall of Mirrors themed basement, where Peach is able to play through alternate versions of the game's levels with the opposite Sparkler as the companion and the opposite Sparkler as the final boss. However, this time, Princess Peach and Stella intervene to create resolution for the feuds between them, reversing the curse of needless competition and culminating in both Sparklers putting their love for the theater ahead of any tension or jealousy. Once all of the Sparklers have been united behind a shared goal of restoring the theater to its pre-game state, weakening Madame Grape's hold and allowing Peach to damage her, Peach confronts the villain and learns Madame Grape was once a Sparkler herself. Years ago, she was a star performer whose career was overshadowed by the theater's success and the induction of new talent that followed. Consumed by jealousy and bitterness, she sought to take revenge and destroy that which prevented her from stardom. Just like the original game, Madame Grape is defeated and then comes back to life, and once again, the game's ultimate resolution has Princess Peach empowered by all the Sparklers to Radiant Peach Super Saiyan mode to defeat her. This time, Peach's climactic ascent to power is narratively earned by her role resolving the conflict among Sparklers throughout the game. The Sparklers, in turn, are now able to put themselves in a supporting role to her and do not try to fight Madame Grape, because they've learned that empathy and collaboration is fundamental to the theater's existence, even more than being the primary star. Peach defeats Madame Grape, and this time around, Madame Grape is redeemed by seeing the genuine camaraderie and transformation of the other Sparklers. She recognizes that her quest for individual glory was misguided, and that true theatrical greatness lies in collaboration, and the other Sparklers welcome her back to their midst for her accountability. With Madame Grape's redemption and the curse broken, the Sparkle Theater is restored to its former splendor. The Sparklers, having learned the value of working together, celebrate their newfound unity with a grand performance that combines all genres into some harmonious show. Madame Grape becomes a director and a mentor to the other Sparklers, and Stella becomes the theater's manager and playwright, having realized that she does not need to be in the spotlight to love the theater. And finally, Peach is honored as a true friend and mediator who restored the theater's magic and unity. The final scene shows the theater bustling with renewed life and creativity, hinting at future performances that will thrive on the spirit of cross-genre collaboration. I think a huge part of the issue I have with Princess Peach Showtime's original plot is that it doesn't feel intentional, or like anything in the game builds to the climactic final cutscene, or any of the characters were really meant to be characters. If the Sparklers are vital to the resolution of the game, why do we only see them for 10 seconds of a single level? I imagine since the original game has 2 stages each devoted to a specific costume, and then 1 each in the basement, so too will this revision have 2 stages each devoted to a specific aesthetic of level design and corresponding Sparkler who acts as your companion in that level, where the second stage has the face-off with the boss Sparkler. Then the basement levels of the original game are replaced with the Hall of Mirrors levels, where the Sparkler ally and Sparkler boss are reversed. In this way, the gameplay and the narrative are tied together, and we actually see both sides of the perspective arguments, are able to effectively resolve them, and then come back to the final fight with a feeling of having earned it. Princess Peach's status in the franchise is too locked for Nintendo to have ever given her an arc of failure and re-emergence, although I think it is extremely important for younger audiences especially to be given media that shows that level of fallibility. I mean, how cool would it be if Princess Peach wasn't a good actress and had to learn over time how to command the stage? I think maximizing her innate love and kindness is the closest we can get to teaching the children something important, and having her act as a go-between constantly trying to find solutions to the deep-seated resentment among the Sparklers drives home the theme that love will prevail over hatred, and there's no point to being a singular superstar if you don't have people on your side. Princess Peach Showtime can be a simple, children-oriented game with an easily comprehensible plot about a corrupted theater and the power of friendship, without assuming that children are incapable of being shown and not told a story. In July of 2023, I turned 22 years old and spent my birthday at Universal Studios Hollywood, all because I wanted to go to Super Nintendo World. I wore a pink sweater and a Princess Peach crown off Etsy because literally the one thing I wanted to do on my 22nd birthday was see the Peach's Castle recreation and take a picture with the scary animatronic Five Nights at Freddy's Peach. And I did that! So imagine 2 months later, I'm sat for a Nintendo Direct expecting a bunch of games I'll never buy, a fun-looking JRPG I'll forget to buy, just to be shocked and awed by the induction of a Princess Peach solo game after almost 20 years. There were a lot of things that Princess Peach Showtime could have done wrong that wouldn't have taken me out of the game as radically. My disdain for this game is not based on some deep-seated resentment for Peach as a character, or a dislike for the Mario franchise's tried and true storytelling methods. It is, in fact, a miracle that this game landed on me so poorly, while in some ways being everything I ever wanted. And as I hate and critique this game, I hope that it comes off clear that I'm trying to be as formative and constructive as I possibly can be. I want a Princess Peach Showtime 2 that reimagines its audience's abilities, both to navigate a playthrough and understand a narrative, and I don't think we can get that if any criticism of this game is hand-waved as, well, it's a game for kids, what do you want? I hope that the next generation of video game players, the casual audience that Princess Peach Showtime targets, ends up finding a love and affiliation to her as a character just like I once did when I played Super Princess Peach in all of its flaws. And I hope that in Princess Peach's next starring title, both generations can come together and have fun with a game that is comprehensively designed, well-constructed, and full of appreciation for the monarch of the Mushroom Kingdom. So there it is, all the reasons why I hate Princess Peach Showtime. I don't know if anyone's gonna watch this, but if you made it to the end and want to subscribe, I'll probably use this channel to keep practicing video editing and video essay writing based on games I've been streaming on Twitch. I have no expectations or ambitions as like some content creator beyond just enjoying doing it, so I'm not trying to meet any metric of success or get numbers or anything, which may affect the type of content you see on here. I'm probably just going to talk about whatever I want to talk about. You can follow me on TikTok too for short form clips from my Twitch, and you can follow me on Twitch to catch my live playthroughs of games, and all those links are going to be in the bio below. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Like and subscribe. All the YouTuber nonsense. We love you, Princess Peach, and etc.